What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Crew 2, and well, as y'all know, it is Wednesday, which means the new summon is now live, and for this week we have the Demons Unleashed, which is going to be our Halloween-themed summit here on the Crew 2. But for this one in Platinum, we have the Halloween Pumpkin Rooftop, which I do have to admit does look kind of cool, and maybe depending on the vehicle you might be running at the moment, maybe the Halloween Pumpkin Rooftop might look good on there. But moving over to gold, we're going to have the Volkswagen Combi Ghost Hunt Edition. This car is actually really fun to use, and to my surprise, is a lot better than it looks. You honestly would probably not expect this car to do as good as it does. Then in silver, we have the Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, which are going to be parts. I do believe this is already parts that are in the game. It's basically giving them to you for free, so you do not have to pay for them. But anyway, moving over to next week's summit is going to be the Frozen Peaks, and this will end up bringing us into November, which is kind of insane, but we're also getting that much closer to the next update on this game as well. But in Platinum, we have the Nitro Chemist Boosted, which is going to be for the touring cars. And if I had to guess, I would say a lot of players are probably not going to like the affix-it stats on this set because a lot of players are not going to want Resourceful, and I do believe that's Lucky and or Gold Finder on a Nitro Chemist set, so I have a feeling if anybody does get this one, they're probably going to end up changing the affix-it stats on that, because normally with Nitro Chemist sets, you're probably going to be aiming for Frenetic or Pure and even Extra Pump as well. I don't think anyone's going to want to have Lucky and or Resourceful on that, so I would say they're getting kind of random with these sets, but at least we can change the affix-it stats, but by doing that, you're going to lose that extra bonus of the ones that are on the set that are part of the summit, so that's kind of unfortunate. But in gold, we have the blue window tint, which I do believe that was in the game a long time ago, so you should get the money back for that as well. But taking a quick look at the summit here, we do have the two frozen tracks in this one, plus a nice mix of events afterwards. And then with the frozen tracks, obviously we will have one being a touring car, which doesn't really shock me too much, and that's also no restriction. And then we will have a street race one, which is going to be the vehicle force because, well, we have the Dodge Charger that is still bugged out, so I have a feeling street race and or hypercar ones in the summits are probably always going to be forced and or a specific vehicle, so you cannot use those two vehicles in these, which honestly does make sense because if these were no restriction, everybody's probably going to pick the Charger and or the KS Mass Leader in the hypercar class, because obviously those cars are going to be the fastest on the ice because for some odd reason, the ice does not affect them at all. But moving over to the next summit, is going to be the Dominion Rivals Stage 3, which I think a lot of players are probably going to be excited for this one. We have a really cool looking Aston Martin Vulcan, the Duke. That car definitely looks awesome with that color scheme. And then obviously in silver, we have the legendary half set boosted for the touring cars once again. And luckily, this set is going to have a good affix-it stat on there, which is going to be Bucks, which I would say is something you definitely want to have with the Fame Magnet set. But the other affix-it stat on there, you're probably going to want to aim for followers because you know you're going for a Fame Magnet, so you're going to want to have more followers in that aspect. So having better affix-it stats is definitely going to make that set a lot better. And then in gold, we're going to have the crown-shaped smoke, which is kind of interesting looking. And then moving over to the last summit before the next update is going to be the Ice Crown. In this one, we have the other legendary half set boosted for the touring car, which for some odd reason is going to be Bucks and followers, which is definitely something you're going to want to have on a Fade Magnet set. But then we're going to have the other one from the other week here is going to have the Bucks and a random affix-it stat on there. So I really don't know why they did that, but if you do want a Fame Magnet set, guys, I would highly recommend going after Bucks and followers on that. And then finally, in Platinum, we're going to have the Science Spangled Nitro, which I would say this one does look pretty awesome. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that one's going to look on many of the cars, even though I really don't look at the Nitros all that often. And now moving over to the Demons Unleashed Summit here, starting off with the Escape. So for this one, I did end up starting off with a hypercar, but then I ended up jumping into an Alpha GP vehicle, which honestly, guys, I would say is probably going to be your best option. The KTM Expo R does a really good job, and all you have to do is throw a Nitro Chemist set on there, and you can also use the KTM Expo R in the other two events as well, which I do recommend doing that on both of these events here because you can pretty much race like you normally would with these cars because they're both going to be on regular tracks, and the KTM Expo R really is a jack of all trades. This car can basically do it all, so I would recommend running this car on both of these races as well, including the Escape. But when it comes to the route on this one, guys, I would recommend basically turning around and going toward the objective and going as fast as you possibly can. I think this is going to be the best way to do this one. I tried all kinds of different routes, and I would say that's probably going to be the easiest. The Alpha GP car really isn't the best thing to drive off-road, so I would definitely try to avoid that if possible. And then moving over to the next skill is going to be a slalom. And for this one, I would say a lot of players are most likely going to recognize this one pretty fast. So for me, I did end up running the Ducati Panigale R, but to be honest, you could probably run any vehicle of your choice. As long as you guys do have the score breaker set, you'll probably be good to go. I got 155,000 points on this one running the Ducati, and obviously all my friends there also got 155 to 156,000 running hypercars and a street vehicle, which is honestly really nice to see. The fact that you can run a lot of different vehicles on the slaloms now. I would say before many people were just running the rally raid because of that set, but I have a feeling that's now going to change in the near future because everyone does have different sets for the hypercar class now as well. And basically every class can still get around 155k pretty easily. But moving over to the next skill is going to be a low altitude, and for this one, I ran the lovely Zivko Edge 540 V3, which I do believe this is literally the only plane I run. I might end up taking a look at some of the other ones to test them out, but luckily guys, the low altitudes are normally pretty easy. You basically hit the objective, and then get lower to the ground and go as fast as you possibly can. I would say you could probably run a lot of different planes on this, but I just really like the stability of the Zivko, and I definitely recommend trying out that plane if you guys have not. But moving over to this street race here is probably going to be a pretty fun one. Now, obviously, guys, these races are themed because this is kind of a Halloween summit. And for this one, you will have to run the Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, which to my surprise really isn't that bad of a vehicle. But to be honest, I can definitely see why I don't run these cars all that much. I'm not really a big fan of with how they handle and honestly how they feel when driving them. And if you guys are running manual, they can be kind of wonky because they are 8 speeds and I find myself shifting too much or sometimes not even shifting enough, which I did find myself doing that on some of the corners because I was trying to get used to the transmission of the Hellcat. But besides that, at least this race is going to be a pretty good time. But do keep in mind though, guys, this race is going to take over 4 minutes to complete, which I would say is going to be one of the longer street races in the game. The other street race is also going to take over 4 minutes as well with the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon, which I did find this car to be a little bit better than the Hellcat, but then again, they're very similar in many aspects with their handling and or their top speed. But personally, I found the Demon to be a lot better, but let me know which car you guys prefer in the comments below as well, because they are definitely pretty similar. And then moving down to the motocross event is going to be the Wolf Territory, which basically takes you on an urban course in the middle of a city. I personally do think this race is pretty fun, but it can definitely be pretty frustrating. I also did decide to run the KTM 450 EXC because it's basically the only bike I use, and it did do a pretty good job on this one, guys, but I would say the course on this might take a little bit to get used to, and definitely want to run a bike that's going to be a little bit easier to ride. But then again, I notice a lot of the motocross bikes are kind of similar, but also very different in many ways, which is kind of interesting, but I would recommend trying out the KTM if you guys have not, because I found this bike to be pretty dang good. And then finally, the last event in the summit is going to be a monster truck event mixed with one of the Rallycross Dominion Forsberg events, which I actually found this one to be really fun. You definitely get to race around on the course, which by the way is big enough for the monster truck so you don't have to struggle all that much. For me, I did run the Ford Mustang GT, which did really good with its handling and speed. If you guys do have it, I would recommend using a Nitro Chemist set with like Pure and or Frenetic and even Extra Pump on there as well, I would say is going to be your best bet. Because on these events, you really do want to have the most speed as possible, and I would say the Ford Mustang GT is probably going to be one of the best overall options for this event. But anyway, if you guys have any questions at all, let me know in the comments below. Let's jump right into this summit.